Hello again, my name is Jay Schorr, along with my business partner and daughter, Mara Schorr, and we are the principals and partners in Schorr Solutions, a medical practice consulting firm, and we are here with a fellow colleague, David Mandell. David is an attorney and a principal of OJM Group, which is an asset protection planning group with over 1,000 clients physician clients throughout the United States. This is a very, very important discussion that we're going to have out of a personal nature that happened to me with the lack of asset protection. David, please answer for us. Give us the down and dirty. What is asset protection for definition and why physicians need this, and what's the most relevant things that you can explain?
Sure. So if you think of the expression, aim for the best, plan for the worst, right? Asset protection planning is about shielding a physician's either practice assets or personal assets in case there's ever future liability. So people think of malpractice lawsuits, but it also could be liability for employees. It could be car accidents. It could be people with teenage drivers. It could be slip and falls on property. And all these things are part of life as you build businesses, as you build wealth. And asset protection planning is about putting a shield around that in case you ever have liability. You're not just out there exposed, you're actually, in some cases, can be very well protected. So it's as you're building everything you're doing in your practice, you want to spend a little bit of time and think a little bit about protecting what you're doing. I think it's really important for physicians because, aesthetic medicine is one of the higher specialties in terms of evidence of liability. A lot of times it's unhappy patients, etc. But the other thing about aesthetic medicine is most of these practices are small practices. Mm-hmm. So the physician is not only practicing, they're also the CEO, the employer. So they have a double area of liability, and then of course all their personal activities, right?
Sure.
Any rental properties or driving
Yes.
or things like this. So, again, I don't think it's something that should keep a lot of doctors up at night, but it does, and they come to us and we help them understand what their options are to put some protections around both their practice assets
right.
And also their personal assets.
If you were to have an aesthetic provider come to you and had doubts about whether or not they needed asset protection, what
Right.
would you tell them about really how to squash their doubts about whether or not they needed this?
Well, it's really, to use the medical analogy, asset protection planning, which really any area of law, mm-hmm. is about diagnosis and then treatment. That's really it. So the first thing they should do is find someone, whether it's our firm or another firm, that can diagnose their situation.
Right.
And they should pay for that. So you
Right.
take a look at my practice assets, take a look at my personal assets based on my state, because a lot of it's state specific. What are my holes? What are my big exposures? Mm-hmm. Do I have a large asset personally that's just sitting out there in the most exposed position?
Sure.
Or not? So if they get that diagnosis, then they can decide, okay, I want to do this, or I want to use this legal tool, I want to get my insurance reviewed, or I want to do some more. But one of the problems I see is a lot of physicians, they may read something or they come to a lecture and they want to think right to the treatment.
Right.
Like patients sometimes.
Right.
I want this. And the physician
Right.
has, in my job, is to step back and say, well, no, let's actually take a look at everything you've got. Let's
mm-hmm.
look at all the options, because maybe you don't need that most expensive legal tool. You could do very well without that and,
Right.
and make it easier. So to answer your question, it's really about go to a place that they can get diagnosed first, mm-hmm. then build out their treatment plan.
The doctor becomes the patient.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
More and more in this field that you specialize in, it's the client doesn't know what they don't know.
Right.
I will share with you, I found out and I learned the hard way, and it's the ugly word of probate. Could you just finalize for us what is the step and why would a physician get in touch with you not knowing what they don't know, and the ugliness of what happens that everything falls into probate?
Well, yeah, so what you're bringing up is actually estate planning, which is related to asset protection planning. So a lot of the times, the benefit of it is you can get two of those things solved with one tool. Maybe a trust of some sort, or you can get two of those challenges solved with one advisor, meaning they can set you up for protection against liability, but also make sure you're well positioned that if there is a death in the family, that everything doesn't get caught in probate, expenses, etc., or taxes. So it's worth doing. Everyone, if they haven't done it before, should get this kind of diagnostic. It'll make them sleep better and practice better.
I appreciate that. I happen to know that you need to protect your assets. You work so hard to build them, and they can be taken away from you through no fault of your own, an unfortunate liability or situation. It is truly professionals like David Mandell and the OJM Group that can help you. David, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to interview you and share this information and knowledge
so
with our
much.
patients.
Thank you.